Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Be the CEO of Your Life live show. I am Yvonne of Major Self Coaching, and I would like to welcome you to the Be the CEO of Your Life live show, where we empower business owners to work smart, earn more, and live better. Every week, I share actionable insights and strategies from my international business coaching experience designed to help you scale your business effectively. And we feature industry experts who offer their invaluable perspectives and tips. So tune in, get inspired, and take your business to the next level. And today we have a very intriguing topic. I've been selected as one of the top 5 coaches for the future trends. And one of the trends that I truly see is how our globalization that's already ongoing will continue to help us business owners to grow our company. But so often I hear business owners and founders in my community with doubts and fears around growing their business using international employees. And if you're watching, I would love to hear from you what your thoughts are. Do you feel comfortable hiring someone who isn't in the same country as you? Or how do you feel? Do you feel maybe a bit anxious? Because so many people that I speak to, they are anxious. That in itself isn't a bad thing, but what is a bad thing that they know they need to outsource, they know they need to delegate more. However, they keep holding back their growth because they are telling me their cash flow isn't so overflowing that they can hire someone in the country they reside in. Very often, those are third world countries where the cost of living are quite high. What do I mean by the cost of living? Well, basically, how much is your rent? How much do you spend when you go to a supermarket? How much do you spend when you go for dinner? How much do you spend when you put gas in the tank, right? Things like every day that we all have to pay that in certain countries are lower compared to others. In a lot of first world countries, those expenses are quite high, but we also know that in different countries, those costs can be lower. And those countries don't even have to be so far away from us, but you need to know where to go. So today I want to talk to you about why you are missing out when you are stopping yourself from hiring internationally. Now, why do I tell you this? Who am I to tell you this? I started my career over 30 years ago in an international global audit firm, one of the top 4, and I started it as an international tax lawyer. And ever since, I've worked internationally. So I know all about how it is to work across borders and how it is to work with different people from different countries, different backgrounds, and different cultures. Personally, I've lived in 5 countries and on 3 continents. And I've worked in so many more. My clients come from over 25 countries. So I know what it is to work internationally. And to top it off, my own team, they are in the US, they're in the Netherlands, they're in Kenya, currently in South Africa, in Bangladesh, and I have someone helping me out occasionally in the Philippines. So I'm aware of what's happening and I'm aware of how you can avoid any pitfalls. And that's what we're going to talk about today. If you're watching this in the replay and you have any questions, please let me know and I will come back to you to make sure that I answer them. So why should you work with some people internationally? Quite frankly, because certain tasks can be outsourced quite well to people in what we like to call lower cost countries. where the cost of living is low compared to the cost of living in the country where you reside in. So think about a lot of the technology. For example, India is a great country that has very many experts that are on par and maybe even further than people in your country with respect to technology. A lot of people have help from virtual assistants in the Philippines. There are many, many countries that have a certain expertise that you could use. I'm not saying you should, I'm just pointing out that it's an option, okay? Now, one of the things I often hear is, well, who should I hire and what about the safety? How do I make sure I'm not hiring some crook, okay? Well, when you hire, you can do so through an agency, especially if you have a lot of fear of hiring someone in a third world country, but you have more confidence in working with people in your own country. There are multiple agencies that have amazing people working for them, and you could use that agency so you have that feeling of trust. I've worked with that before, and I must say it works quite well. It's a different setup as well, because if you work with someone in an agency, in the end of the day, they are the manager and they manage your employee or your interim person, right? It's a different setup than when you hire immediately. When you hire immediately, again, there are pros and cons, but very often a concern is then, what about safety? How do I know that person really does their work? How do I know it is the person that they say they are? And how do I know I'm not getting scammed? Well, you have to make sure you do your due diligence. You have to make sure you have safety measures in place. You have to make sure you get references. You have a watertight contract. You make sure that you use your preferred payment system that you know is safe. You never provide personal details. And you really, 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 I'm thinking about like your bank account and things like that. You really need to make sure that you do your right due diligence. What you would do when you were working with a client overseas, it is in fact the same. So safety measures for sure you need to put into place, but quite frankly, I would be surprised if you wouldn't do that with someone in your country who you would outsource to. Because again, they might be on the other side of the country. You may never see them in person, yet you need to make sure that they are safe and that they are trustworthy. So you always need to do that. Now, another question I get very often asked is, but what about salary? I want to make sure that whatever happens in my company meets the ethical requirements. And I love when I hear that, because let's be honest, I don't know about you, but I've been contacted very often with people saying, hey, I can work for you for $4 an hour. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you would always, always again need to do some homework to really ask yourself, is that a fair price? Even when the salaries are quite low, is $4 a fair price? Because in the end of the day, you do get what you pay for. And you know the saying, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys, right? And ask yourself, in that country, and you can do research these days as well. Again, if you use an agency, they will tell you, but what is a fair price? And don't just think about the hourly rate or the project rate or the salary that you negotiate, but also think about things like holiday, time off. Please keep in mind the religion of the person you work with, whether it is the same religion as you have or whether it's a different religion. The reason why my team has all different religions, which means they all have different religious holidays that are important to them, that I need to honor because I want to honor, right? So for example, one of my team members celebrates Ramadan. Well, he keeps Ramadan and he celebrates Eid, of course. So I know that is something we need to keep in our minds when we plan things. We need to make sure that when that there might be a potential backup when it's a very, especially with a hot month and a very long day. We need to make sure that we have measurements in place to make sure that they can abide to what is important to them, but also the work gets done, right? And there are many examples I have because my team comes from all over. They have different religion than I have, and I want to make sure that they can celebrate what is important to them. So keep that in mind as well. But other things like national holidays, maybe you celebrate the 4th of July. Maybe they don't, but there might be another Independence Day in their country, which is important. So whenever you hire someone, look at the height of the salary, that is fair, but also look into holidays and what they need to function in a right way, because you can go a long way by honoring them. If you're like, well, listen, I'm hiring you and you need to abide to my holidays and my festive days, that's your prerogative. But make sure to discuss this up front so there are no unpleasant surprises. So be very transparent in what you're expecting. Okay. Now, another question, and this is an important question, and it's something I work with on a daily basis. I'm in Spain, Barcelona, and I have many clients in the United States on the West Coast and on the East Coast. The majority is on the East Coast. So I know that whatever I do, I am 6 hours ahead of the East Coast. I'm 6 hours ahead of New York times. So, for example, Eastern Standard Time, New York. For example, in my country where I am right now, it is 6:15 p.m. in the evening. And I know that for many of my clients, it's 12:15 p.m. in the afternoon, and they might have lunch while watching me. Whenever I work, I need to keep that in mind, the time difference. Now, I'm pointing this out. This may come as no surprise to you, but it is something to keep in mind when you work with employees or project people in different countries. Don't underestimate it, because if you need them to work on certain times, for example, you want them to help you with your marketing, you want to post when it is evident for you in your country to be present, to be online. It can very well be that the time you want things to be posted, if you want to do it manually and not have it automated by planning, but by the time that you want things posted, or by the time you want them to reply to customers, whatever it is you do, it may very well be nighttime for them. They call that the graveyard shift. I'm smiling because, again, that's what my team has told me. Many people are already okay with this and are already working like that. The question is that what you want, and how do they feel about it? Never make a decision for someone else. Ask them. Go into a compound that, yes, sometimes there was a project and it meant that part of my team had to work through the night. Did they mind? No, actually they didn't, because it gave them the opportunity to spend time with their family, with their children during the daytime. And it was something they were already very, very much acquainted to. You could ask yourself, is it what I want? It's up to you. But make sure to keep in mind the time difference, because it is important to discuss it when you are negotiating how you will work together. Okay. And then another question I hear this with English, but I also hear it with Spanish, because especially with Spanish, there are so many different Spanish speaking countries with all different accents and all different dialects. I had a client who refused to work with people from a certain Spanish background because they didn't like that Spanish dialect. That's all okay. Be aware of the differences. As you can hear, I am not a native English speaker, but I know English very well. I've worked in English for almost my entire career. The same goes for many other people. So don't assume because someone's native language isn't English that they can't speak English well enough. And of course, if it is all about English for you, if that's the main thing, you may not want to work with someone whose native language isn't English. But for all other occasions, you can, of course, have a conversation. You will pick it up quickly enough. And there are many, many tools that help people like me to make sure that whatever I write hits the mark and that corrects me when I'm using the wrong words. And especially these days, with all the tools out there, that should not be a problem. But ask them where have they worked before? What is their experience? I must say, sometimes there is no fit. That happens as well. It happened to me. I hired someone through someone, and it turned out that the people that got hired on my behalf were paid too little, were actually still in school. They were very, very young, and they had like three extra jobs. So I felt so bad for that lady I was working with because she was very young, and it was like, oh my word, I don't want that in my company. So I learned from that. I need to do the investigation up front. I need to ask about where do they come from, what's their working experience, what's their age, what is their level of English, what do they find important in their work environment. And here is the thing. Too often I see people, and this is wherever they hire someone, I see people only focusing on the tasks at hand. So I'm already took marketing as example, but let's say I want someone to make sure that all my processes are mapped, all my processes are written down, and that they are converted into employee handbooks, right? Now, I have a very great idea about how I want it to do. So what very often happens is that the person that is decided, okay, that's the part I'm going to outsource, is they write down, these are the job expectations. You need to write the processes down, you need to do the interviews, and you need to actually make sure that you write it all down in a handbook, right? Very clear. If you're thinking that's the only thing you do when you hire someone, you are quite wrong. And I can already tell you that there's very likely not going to be a match between you and the person you're hiring. Because yes, they need to be great at what you want them to do, because after all, that's the reason why you're outsourcing. They need to be better than you, quicker than you, or your team. And in that respect, they will become already cheaper than you, right? So that's the things that you check with your job description. Now, the other element that you need to not forget is what is the type of person you want to work with. And here is where the cultural background becomes very important. And I will give you a personal experience where I went wrong, and now I know why I went wrong. So I have amazing ideas. My mind never stops. I can wake up with 100 new ideas. I'm a big idea thinker. I'm an innovator. I'm an achiever. I'm already like, okay, this is one idea. Let's do it. And let's go on to the next and the next and the next, right? And I love it. I love the speed. I love the new things, and I love to move on. I also know that for me personally, there is less challenge, and I don't like it as much, is to actually implement the plans and make sure that they are seen through. So that's the part I need to outsource. Now, given that I am very high level, I know from myself I have less interest in details. I'm not detail orientated. But what I also know from myself, because I always go on, is that I want someone to work with me and for me who is a self-starter, who can work independently. The one thing I truly hate is to micromanage. I hate to be micromanaged, but I don't have that anymore. But I also hate it when I have to constantly check, constantly tell you what you need to do. That is not going to work with me. Besides that, I also know, because I am such a visionary, I often tend to oversee certain things because my mind is already on to the next. And this is where I expect the people that work for me to tell me, you know what, I love the idea, but have you thought about that, 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 that? It might very well be that I haven't thought about it. And I really want someone to integrate their genius with mine so we make the best of the best. So when you hire someone, it is pivotal that you know yourself and the people in your team. You need to be aware of what you need so you can thrive, but they, the people you're going to hire, are also put into their strength and they also know what is necessary for them to support you in the best way possible. Now, why do I emphasize culture? And I'll give you an example. In many Asian countries, and I know I can't generalize, so I'm not going to do that. So skip that. I'm sorry I said that. But in my experience, I've worked with some people from the Philippines, and their culture of this specific person was to be very, very serving. That's what they love to do best. They address me with ma'am, what can I do for you? And basically, they were very humble, not outspoken at all. They didn't speak their mind. They waited to be told what to do. And when they were told what to do, they did the one step and they didn't take an extra step, not because they couldn't, but because in their culture, it was seen as disrespectful to do that. And I'm saying this to a very specific person. When I found that out, I knew I should have tested that and I should have had the interview up front to find it out, because that is not something that works well with me. Because I do not have the patience. I expect someone to speak up and I want them to actually think with me to form that integration. I've worked with more people after that, also from the Philippines, and I had someone who was amazing. That's why they're still part of my team. They did speak up. They were independent. They saw things that I didn't see, and they told me, hey, have you thought of this? I didn't. Okay, well then how about we do it like this? And that's when the integration started to work. So always check the cultural background, because sometimes in certain cultures, for example, it can be total opposite of what your culture and your upbringing is has taught you. As an example, when I lived in South Africa, where I come from in the Netherlands, it is a sign of respect to look someone in the eyes. Okay, and it's actually deemed rude when you are not looking someone in the eyes, or when you're looking down. It's like, why are you being so rude? That's from where I come from in the Netherlands. When I worked in South Africa, I've worked with someone who was brought up that if someone is higher positioned than yourself, or if someone is older than yourself, you never look that person in the eye. You always respectfully look down so that person knows that you are showing respect. You can imagine that if you don't know that, that's like culture clash. People coming from the Netherlands, from where I am, would say, gosh, that person is rude. And they would think, oh my gosh, why is he telling me that I need to look them in the eyes? Because I can't do that, because that's disrespectful. So those are the things you need to talk about. So if you do, you have the most amazing people. You can always find the most amazing people. And I would say these things, hiring, safety, salary, including holidays, time differences, English, where you come from, your culture, isn't just with working with people internationally. It should always be a part of your hiring process. But when you do work with people internationally, make sure to double check those things. And the best start is to know yourself, what you need, how you thrive with working with people. And that's what you then go looking for. And I can tell you that across borders, there might be some gems waiting for you. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I'm quite passionate about this topic. If you have any queries or if you want to chat more with me, just send me a message, because I love nothing better than to help you grow your company to the next level. So thank you today for joining us on the Be the CEO of Your Life live show. If you are a driven business owner aiming to scale your business and achieve outstanding growth, I'd love to help you get there. My international business coaching is designed to help you work smart, earn more, and live better. Connect with me here, send me a DM, or go to my website, www.amaze-yourself.com, to discover how we can bring your business to the next level. So, see you next week and amaze yourself.